So today you're joining me on the banks of one of my local day tickets. It is mid to late January. It's actually fairly mild today compared to how it has been. We've had proper cold temperatures locally, down to -7 at nights at times, but this lake does have an inlet at the top coming down from a top lake and then obviously flows out the bottom, so a bit of flowing water. This lake typically doesn't freeze as quickly as other lakes in the area. So come up here absolutely completely ice free. It's fairly mild today. It's about 4.5 degrees on the car. I think it's getting up to about 6. But the idea of today, of course, being winter, is just to come somewhere where I'd like to think I'll get a bite and just do my best. I'm going to be fishing with singles. I'll get onto the bait and everything in a second, but I've just had a wander up the lake. There's 2 other anglers that haven't been here that long, nothing yet. But I stood down that end, didn't see a thing. So I came up this end. It was actually the shallower end. I turned the camera around, and the swim I've chosen is this one here, a bit further back because not far from where those ducks are now. Some bubbles came up as I walked around, and this time of year even a few bubbles like that is enough to go on. So I'm just going to quickly get some baits ready here, lower them in quickly and quietly, see what happens and then reassess in a bit. But I have to go by what I've seen so far, and hopefully those bubbles means there's at least one fish there, and this time of year that's a lot to go by. So carrying the bare essentials, obviously all the camera kit weighing me down more than anything else. Let's get some rods out and fling them out just down there, see if we get an early bite. Right, so I've just got the first rod out, and I'm sitting a bit back from the swim just because the bubbles are really close in, and if there is fish there, which I think there are, even if it's just 1, maybe 2, that's a lot to go by this time of year. So I've just left that over there. I've got a camera roll on it in case it goes off. Gonna rig up the second rod ready and then just keep my eyes peeled for any other signs of fish. Now, as I mentioned, as I was putting that rod out, the swim to my right, as I was rigging up that first rod, big tail swirl came up in that margin. So it's good signs that there's fish up this end. Whether I've chosen the right swim, I don't know, but I'm traveling light. I'm using singles, which this time of year is great to travel light, not putting any bait in to sort of focus on one area or put all your eggs in one basket. If I see fish elsewhere or other signs, I can bring a rod in, quickly flick it out elsewhere and hope for quick bites. That's all I can really hope for. My lighter is about to die. I'm trying to keep it warm in my pocket, just about able to blob it down. I should probably move over to bait screws so that I don't have that issue in the future. But there we go, I just about had enough left in there to do this one. Just going really simple, Ronnie rigs. I don't tend to fish pop-ups much anymore, but at the moment I go in high visual, something's just off the deck. There could be a lot of debris on the bottom. It's quite a tree heavy lake, so a lot of foliage falls in the lake. It can be silty in patches, so doing that just means that I should sit above. It's nice and visual, it's right in their face. These are actually the 15mm pop-up, the cultured citrus hook baits. These are the pop-up versions. So they're 15mm pop-ups underneath, and it's like a neutral buoyancy paste around the outside, so that doesn't affect the buoyancy. Once that comes off, it should be the same buoyancy as it is with it on, so that shouldn't affect when I make it all balanced with a bit of putty. I'm actually overweighting them so that it doesn't waft around. It sits quite nicely on the bottom and it drops down into fish's mouth if and when they come along and pick it up. So that's the hook bait. I need to put a bit of putty on that now, which I'll do quickly. I'm just keeping my eye on that rod because I haven't got my buzzers in yet. I'm listening out for a clutch, and I'm probably going to end up with some very muddy reels. The banks at the moment, as you'd imagine this time of year, it's a heavily walked footpath as well, so general public can come up and down here. So it's very muddy this time of year, but it also means that there's constant noise on this bank. Dog walkers, uni students up and behind us on their uni grounds. So it's all right being a bit noisy on the bank because I think the fish are used to it to an extent. But even so, this time of year, I don't want to be too noisy in a swim where I've got a rig in, which is why I've left it about 15 feet away from me. But just get this rod ready. I'll probably need a little bit more putty than this when I come to it, but I'll test that in the margin in a second. Now the first one I put out was literally just this, nothing else around it, but because I've got a bit more time now, because that was just a case of if the fish are there, I wanted to get a rig in there quickly. This one I'm going to put a bit of extra bait around it. So in this bag or bucket of goodies, it's the citrus range. Now Luke's recently done a video on the citrus range, but this is very much focusing on fishing singles or a bit of a pimped up single. So I've got the Plume Juice, that's citrus flavour, some of the Fizzing Stick mix, and then the really small micro pellets, again in the citrus range. So for this rod, I'm just going to make a really little PVA bag. I'm not going mad because I don't want to be too blatant, or I don't say too blatant, you're fishing a 15mm pink pop-ups, so it's fairly blatant, but I don't want to go over the top with the bait. Idea being, if I see fish elsewhere, I don't want to put too much bait in one spot and then think, oh, I've got to sit on it. I can move around, and it doesn't use much bait. That's another good thing about this time of year. It doesn't use much bait. Oh, thought that was my clutch then. It was someone coming down the track. So just a bit of pellet. That'll do. Some of the Fizzing Stick mix. Now, this is stuff that I have actually used to good effect before. This isn't one of those videos where I'm using something because it's been sent to me. I use Nashbait on the whole in my own fishing, and when it gets to this time of year, I switch over to the citrus range anyway, so this isn't anything new to me. This is how I normally fish this time of year. I might add the odd bit of maggot or something to it, but on the whole, this is pretty much it. So there we are. I've just got some of the Fizzing Stick mix in there, some of the micro pellet. So it's just a little bit of extra attraction around my hook bait once that goes out. So my pop-up should sit nicely above this little gathering of bait. The Fizzing Stick mix, as the name suggests, fizzes, so it sort of goes up and down the water column. So if there is any fish just mooching about, I'm in the fairly shallow end this side. If there is any fish swimming about and they're just above my hook bait, but this should hopefully draw them down because it will get them interested. There's a good stock in here, and I have caught all year round. So that's it. That's all I'm going to do with the bag. I need to quickly balance the hook bait a bit more, but then to finish it off, I'm just going to be using a little bit of the Plume Juice on the hook bait and a bit around the bag, just give it a little bit of extra attraction. So it's maximum attraction for minimal bait. I don't want to overfeed them, but I really want to get their attention to get them to hone in on the bait. So I'm going to put some of this on the bag and hook bait in a second. Once I've got that nicely critically balanced, then I'm just fishing lead clip setup and nice and simple fishing slack lines because I'm fishing fairly close in. But I'm going to keep my eyes on the water for any other signs of bubbles whilst I get this one sorted, flick it out and then see what the day entails. If nothing happens here, I'm not adverse to moving around several swims today, but if the fish show or seem to be here in numbers or there's signs of them, there's no reason to move. But that's enough jabbering on. One rod is fishing. It's time to get this one out as well. Now round into my fourth swim of the day, and for anyone that follows me on my personal YouTube channel will recognise the backdrop of this swim. It's one of my favourite swims on this lake, and the reason I don't fish it so much anymore is just because I like to mix it up a bit and change the scenery, but it has done me well in the past. And actually one of my best ever sessions up here was in March after a netting. I had about 13 fish in a day, a couple of 20s and stuff, so I know it can do fish. But the lake has been fishing pretty difficult the last week or so. I've done a couple of trips to not much success, and only one fish has been out today, and that's to the lads that are fishing opposite. They've had one fish between them in the deeper water that's accessible from this swim. But I'm also going to put one down the right margin, which has it's done me well in the past. It's a bit different to what it was a few years ago, but it's always worth trying old spots that used to do bites. So I'm still sticking with the same hook baits I got on there, partly because they've still got some life left in them. They're still popped, obviously, and also my lighter was nearly dead, so I don't really have any more power to blob down the floss. I made a couple of little bags before I left the other swim. Again, just a little bit of the Fizzing Stick mix, predominantly pellet, and I'm just going to put a little bit of the Plume Juice on it before it goes out as well, just to boost that attraction. But I'm finding I'm not needing much of the Fizzing Stick mix to get that, to give that reaction. As you saw some of the clips from earlier when I just did a test in the margin, the amount I put in was just going absolutely berserk. So I don't think a huge amount is needed to get the effect that you desire from it, but we'll see. We'll stick one down the margin to the left, the other one will go slightly out towards mid-water in the deeper water, and see if we can get something down this end of the lake, because it is the complete opposite end of the lake to where I was all morning. So let's get these rods out. We've got a couple of hours left to go. Hopefully we can, oh yeah, 2 hours, 10 minutes till I've got to leave. So I've really got to pull it out the bag now. 'Well, unfortunately, not even the magic of editing could get a fish on the bank for me on my last trip. At the whole lake, it did one fish the whole day. So there's no wonder bait when it comes to winter fishing, but obviously you want to stack the odds in your favour. So I'm back down once again. I'm actually starting this session in the swim I ended up in on my last trip. I got the lake to myself, got an area I like the look of, which is the deeper bowl, and I've also got one down in this margin. Spots which have produced for me before, The only difference between now and the previous sessions, we've had a lot of rain and the water has turned to a chocolate brown. So visibility is pretty crap. How that plays out with the fishing, I don't know. I've done well up here before in conditions like this. So fingers crossed, today we could bag ourselves a few fish on the Citruz. Well, I was just setting up to film another video while I'm here, and the one sight in the bowl has gone off. I've been here 20 minutes, so fingers crossed, get this one in, and it bodes well for the rest of the trip. There we go, my reward for getting up at 6 AM on a February morning, getting here first thing, first angler on the lake, and still the only angler on the lake. This fish is like a block of ice, but the rewards are there. If you could be bothered and stupid enough to go out in the winter, but stack the odds in your favour with good hook baits and good high attract visual aspects to your bait. And even in murky brown waters like this, there's rewards to be had. Very, very happy with that. I've already stuck the rod back out just in case there's another quick bite, because the weather's going to get horrendous this afternoon and I want to be wrapped up and home and dry before that comes in. Very, very welcome. Just getting back. Brilliant. Oh, that water's freezing. Whew, and he's disappeared already. It's that murky, this water. Happy days. Hopefully one of those goes up again. Well, there we go, fish number 2. Bit of a wriggly one on the bank. Carbon copy take is the first one. They don't seem to really know they're hooked until I'm halfway through playing them. Smaller than the first as well, but very, very welcome. That's 2 bites in the space of about an hour. Still the only one here. Rain's just started to arrive, but I think I'm going to hold on a bit longer, because if they keep on obliging, then I'm going to stay here anyway. Rod's back out again. Hopefully, carry on in the same form. But if not, 2 bites in the morning in February. Cannot complain. Let's get him back. Well, as forecast, the weather is starting to take a turn for the worse. It's only starting to drizzle at the moment, but it's going to get much, much heavier with the wind pushing 30 miles an hour at times. I don't really need to stay here. I've had 2 fish. It's not even midday yet, so 2 fish in February with no one else on the lake. You can't really complain. So going to bring them in, get home. Oh, a fish just boshed in front of me actually. The fish are here, but it's getting to the case of I don't really want to be here anymore. It's getting pretty windy, pretty miserable, and rather than sitting out getting soaked and potentially not catching anything else because I've had my window of opportunity, I think I'm going to go home and call that a win. So for more information on the citrus range, please do head over to the Nash website. It is a bait I've been using for years anyway. For any of you that have followed me on my personal channels, you know that I use the 𝘃𝗶𝗀𝗲 squid throughout the sort of spring onwards, and winter I use the citrus. So this is very much an insight into my own fishing. It's done me proud several winters in a row, and it's continuing to do so now. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please hit like if you did, and subscribe to us if you haven't already, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any future uploads. And also follow us on all the social media platforms coming up at the bottom of your screen right now. Rods are going to be the last thing to come in, but that's it for now from me. See you next time.